fire in the belly and all that stuff. It's great. Anyway, I just want to remind people that April is Earth Day month. There is an Earth Day that's designated, but a lot of the water agencies in Southern California and across the country celebrate it all through the month on different weekends and so forth, and also during the week. A couple events that are coming up in the areas around here, just to remind anybody. On April 7th, Cucamonga Valley Water District on Saturday. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., so they're going to have an event that's there. Chris and I will be there.
Yes, we will.
And in fact, I'll be the master of ceremonies for that day, so it'll be great. Also happening on April 7th is the City of Corona. That's also on a Saturday, but that one goes from 8:30 to 2 p.m. And then April 13th, Chino Basin Water District. Chris is going to be handling that. That's on a Friday. And then I'm just going to stop at the next one because we'll get to those in the next couple of weeks. April 19th, Inland Empire Utilities Agency, and that's going to be on a Thursday from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So those are some of the events that's coming up. There's a lot more, but again, it's too soon to mention all of them, so we're excited about that. We're going to get into anything new for you this week, Chris?
No, I don't think so on my palette.
How do you like the radio business now?
It's great. As you said, I'm so excited to be here. It's an awesome opportunity for me, and I couldn't wait to step in for Mike.
I appreciate it. I love the spunk. I love the excitement. So that's a good thing. Anyway, we're going to go into the water news, what's happening around California, and then we're going to go on a little trip to Milwaukee and talk to some people across the country there. So we'd like to welcome the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, Miss Chris Austin. Chris, welcome today.
Welcome, and welcome to Chris. Isn't this going to be confusing now? Chris and Chris.
Chris and Chris.
It is. We'll work it out, Chris.
That's okay. I have my two daughters. One's Melissa, and the other one's Missy. And we call them both Missy. And when they were little, we used to call Missy, and both of them would shout from their bedrooms, "What? No, we want the big one or the little one," just to get it in. So we have that at home. So anyway, so Chris Austin, Miss Austin.
Yeah.
Hey, so what's new in the water world? I hear the EPA administrator is holding some roundtables with some California people.
Oh yeah, well he's out here talking about the waters of the U.S. rule, a very controversial rule put out by the Obama administration and promptly retracted by the Trump administration, but still it leaves in question, what waters qualify for the Clean Water Act and other regulations. So it's a highly controversial issue, no doubt. So there's that on the table. I actually don't believe that the Trump administration has found a regional administrator for the EPA region that covers California and the West. They're headquartered in San Francisco, and there's not many takers for the job. So we have the EPA administrator himself coming out to talk to the farmers. So that was interesting, no doubt.
What's the pay scale for that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Chris and I are thinking about it.
We're rolling our eyes here going,
Well, the Trump administration has some policies regarding the EPA that are not really popular with the environmentalists, and the EPA being headquartered in San Francisco, which is sort of the hotbed for that sort of thinking. It's amazing. Imagine that. He can't find anyone who wants to go into that environment and
well, you can't have a concealed carry there. Right? They're protesting you carry guns there, so you can't have a bodyguard there.
So anyways, that's interesting. Yesterday the Metropolitan Water District held a workshop with their board members to talk about picking up the rest of the tunnels tab that the Central Valley project contractors or the ag contractors in the Central Valley aren't interested in at this time picking up.
Right.
And this is another highly controversial move, and we'll see where this goes.
Yep.
So that plugs Southern California right into that equation then, doesn't it, Chris?
Oh yeah, it sure does. And Metropolitan is kind of going on the basis that these agricultural districts in the Central Valley don't really want the project right now, but when water supplies get real tight, they'll probably change their mind. And they're probably correct about that. But in this plan, Metropolitan would sort of, rule the water world in terms of, getting water from this project. So it's, highly controversial.
Well, they want to move it along. I mean, the longer everybody sits and contemplates this, we'll eventually get into a crisis, and then what?
Yeah, well, and it's not just necessarily moving it along, but it's more cost effective to build 2 tunnels at once than 1 tunnel, and
right.
They feel that they'll never get back to building the second tunnel. It's actually, tunneling through the Delta is going to be hard on the environment. No way, no dispute about that. But it would be much harder to build 1 tunnel and go back and build the second tunnel than if you just built 2 at once in terms of environmental impact.
Right.
So, that's sort of where Metropolitan's coming from, and they feel that, the Central Valley ag districts are kind of, balking at it right now, but when water supplies get tight, then they'll likely change their mind. At least some of them will.
So do you think that if they plan to build a double one, or they build one now and then one later, wouldn't the people figure that the exploration and all the surveys and all the things they need to do, environmental, would have already been done when they figured they were going to do the twin tunnels first, or would they have to redo it for a second tunnel?
Well,
separately?
I imagine that when they go through and do the one, the second should be much easier to do. However, any time any of this is under consideration and is open to challenge, is going to be challenged. So let's say if we're highly optimistic that they're going to build 1 tunnel through, then when they go to build the second, no one should think that the opponents are not going to challenge that at every step of the way, as they are doing with the project as it is now. So it's a challenge.
Yeah.
We'll see where that goes. I have no idea. Can't really predict it at this point. The goal is to get the project approved before Governor Brown leaves office, because no one really knows what the next incoming governor is going to be willing to do with water. But and right now it looks like they're all sort of staying away from it and are kind of tend to lean on the side of being against the tunnels project.
Right.
But you never know what's going to happen. It's a long road until November. But the plan is, or the hope is, to get the project approved before Governor Brown leaves office. If it doesn't, then I think there's a real question of whether they'll be able to do the project.
Well, the 2 top candidates right now is Newsom and Cox, I believe.
Yeah,
and,
right now.
And neither of them are speaking about this.
It's a controversial issue, and I'm not sure I blame them. I'm not sure I would go out on a limb and state my position at this point either if I were just merely a candidate.
Well, yeah, I guess I understand that, but you surely want to know what somebody thinks before you vote for them.
Well, almost definitely. And there are those people who are what I would term a single issue voter, who feel passionately enough about one issue that's going to make the determination.
Yeah.
But when you look at, water is very important to California, no doubt, and we should know what the politicians think. But to be fair, I know it's shocking. I don't believe it myself, but there are other issues in California that are important. I mean, no, I can't believe that, but, other things do play in the same.
Yeah, you would think, right? So just just thinking about the storms we had last week and the water supply, the late storms that came. A couple of reports I've heard rivaling, the March miracle of the decade before last. What's the latest you hear from that front?
Well, yes, those storms did great, and oh boy, do we need every inch, every millimeter of precipitation that dropped upon us. But we are still behind the eight ball in terms of snowpack. What's interesting is that those storms raised the precipitation levels closer to normal for some of the Central Valley areas like Sacramento and others in the northern Sacramento Valley. But in terms of the snowpack is still quite far below normal. I think it's at about 50%. And Sacramento has 87% normal precipitation. So this points to what the scientists have been telling us all along, that we're going to get less precipitation as snow, more as rain. We saw this with our record year precipitation. It was record rainfall, but about a third less off, of the snowpack from the record snowpack. So record rainfall, 2/3 snowpack. Things are changing, and that's where the big challenge for California's water system comes, from this changing climate. We depend on that snowpack to give us water in the summer months, and that snowpack is steadily declining.
Right, so the change in getting more precipitation in the form of rain than seeing that as accumulating snowpack, especially in the Sierras here, I mean, that's the issue, because it has long-lasting ramifications for the California water source, California water supply, in terms of the infrastructure that handles that. Is that right, Chris?
Oh, that's absolutely true. And this is where new storage projects can really come into play here, which is, why we're all looking at the Water Commission and really hoping they make some decisions about storage projects. Because we have dams, they call them rim dams, that are kind of up in the mountains, but a lot of precipitation, and now more so than ever, is falling below those dams where it can't really be controlled. So reservoirs like Sites Reservoir would be able to capture some of that water and save it for use later on. And there are other projects that are looking to pick up on these flows that are below our main dams.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's such a connection between the altitude of the water collection facilities and the type of precipitation we're seeing as a result of climate change and the so-called atmospheric river or Pineapple Express and those sort of things.
Yeah, and those are warmer storms, so those mean more rain falling at lower elevations, less snow. That's what an atmospheric river is. It's coming from the tropics.
Do you think we'll start looking more at cloud seeding?
Well, they have determined that cloud seeding works. But, and there is plenty of cloud seeding going on right now, even up in the Sierras. The main trick with cloud seeding is that there needs to be clouds. And often when it's very dry, there aren't any clouds to be seeded. We look at the blue skies and we wear our shorts and we go, oh, wow, this is really strange for winter. But there's no clouds. And so that's sort of one of those requirements.
They talk about the money for the train to nowhere. We joke about all the time. But, we had, and this is kind of my favorite topic, the water train with that company that has 132. And they may have more cars, railroad cars now. But why can't they bring water in that way? I mean, we don't have, they're not going to build anything right away. So why can't they use these rail cars and brings in tons of water?
Because I think the water use is more than what that could theoretically supply.
But it could bring it into, for example, the Central Valley and not the whole to do all of California, but pinpoint it into certain areas. I mean, to me, having something is better than nothing.
Yeah, and I think that's where, people would hope that those farmers would look to the Cal Water fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always like to think of something to do versus nothing to do and just talk about it. And I don't know what it costs to transport that water or anything, but it sounded like a neat idea when I had the guy on the radio show for that. And I can't believe somebody would spend. Those railroad tanker cars can't be inexpensive. And when I talked to him a year ago, he had 132 of them, so he has an investment, which got to be expensive. I mean, I'm sure they're more than $100 a piece, thousands of dollars a piece for those things. But I don't know. We got to figure a smarter way, because there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of regulations. It takes a long time to get things done, and I don't see the residuals of all these talks come to fruition right away, and that scares me.
What's interesting is that I had the opportunity to moderate a panel discussion at the Water Reuse Conference in Monterey this week, and they were talking about recycled water.
Mm-hmm.
And many communities are taking they're investing in recycled water, and we're actually, the state is moving to direct potable reuse.
Right.
Meaning we'll clean up this water and put it right back into the water system.
Yeah, Orange County, Los Angeles. I mean, they have some great programs that are working excellent.
Yeah, they are. And what they're doing currently is they clean up the water and then they put it into the groundwater aquifer. They sink it in through injection wells or recharge ponds. But they're working towards regulations where they will clean up this water and put it directly into the reservoirs to be distributed out to the customers. New regs are coming out, but this is the move that we're working towards, which is an interesting thing. And I had 4 panelists with different recycled water projects across the state, and the toilet to tap is not really turning people off these days. I mean, their constituents are very receptive to this idea.
It's just a mindset of people. It's like,
I think that 5 years of drought kind of changed people's minds, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I don't know if you watch a show called Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern on cable. Do you ever catch that? And he goes around to different countries and tastes food that people here would probably turn to know. Oh, he's eating bugs. Oh, he's eating a bat, or But some of these things, it's cultural, and in other parts of the world, it's natural for them. And when you hear the term toilet to tap, people just turn their nose up at it immediately. But I've been to some of the places where they've shown the people and dip the glass in the water and drink it, and you can't tell the difference. In fact, sometimes it even tastes better than the regular tap water. But I think it's an educational thing that the public needs to hear more about and see more about, and even get to try it. And in fact, what you do is you lay out 2 glasses of water, one's from the regular tap and one's from recycled, and see if they can tell the difference. It's like the Pepsi challenge or the Coke challenges they used to do.
Wine tasting.
Yeah, that's an idea. Hey, they have this new lady, Carla Nemeth, at the Department of Water Resources, and I know she was laying out her vision for California.
Oh yeah, that was very interesting. I should point out that Carla Nemeth is, I believe, the first female director of the Department of Water Resources.
Yep.
So that's a step forward for things.
Yes.
And yeah, she gave a speech at a conference I was at last week, emphasizing partnerships as being very important as the department moves forward. And probably the most interesting thing is that she was talking about these discussions that are going on in the watersheds that are tributaries to the Delta, where rather than having the State Water Board go through their water quality control plan process, where their goal, pretty much is to find more flows for the Delta one way or another. They're actually, I believe Bruce Babbitt is involved in these negotiations, and they're going through each of these watersheds, and they're talking to all the diverters and trying to work out something where they can have more flows in the river for fish, because that's one of the problems there, and, water to floodplains, and they're working on these agreements that if they can get these agreements good enough that they will go to the State Water Board and propose these rather as a program of implementation for improving the water quality in the Delta. Yeah. It would be quite an amazing thing if it happens, but we'll see.
I think she's an interesting lady. I've listened to her a couple times and read some things that she wrote. Seems to be quite intelligent and knowledgeable about what to do, and I think she has a great vision for running that organization. Not to say that the people before her were bad, they're not, but it's a tough job.
Oh, it certainly is, and there's no doubt that she's qualified, no doubt, and she's been around. Well, I've been here 10 years, and she's been involved in the water world as long as I have. So it's a tough job to manage that department, but I think, we'll see how she does.
Yeah, I think that the hardest part of being in any of these things, whether it's Metropolitan Water or the water boards or any of this stuff, it's the publicity that comes out. That's the hardest. I think that would wear on a person. It would wear on me every day, just getting knocked and questions and, and stuff. It's tough. Well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Oroville Dam crisis certainly gave a lot of ammunition for people to take aim.
Yep.
I'm not sure it was all deserved. I mean, we do things. I mean, people do the best they can in the time of the era, that they're involved.
Yep.
And when they were building that spillway in the 1960s, I do believe that they were doing what they thought was the best thing, given the engineering and the thinking at the time.
Right.
It's very. I think it's kind of unfair to go back and to judge past decisions made decades ago based on values that have emerged since that time.
Yeah.
I think it's a little unfair. But, nonetheless, they had to answer for that crisis, and that's caused a lot of angst and a lot of change within the department for better communications and, hopefully better overall.
Yeah, I mean, we all learn from the mistakes and know what we knew 30, 40 years ago is totally different from what we know today. And we got to find new ways to go forward. I do agree with you that the toilet to tap water is probably one of the better things, and having more water storage is greatly needed, especially in Southern California. So there's a lot of projects on the table. The thing is for the electors to again, I want to see a priority of what they think needs to happen in this state. And, water is going to be one of the top, to me, it was in the top 3 of what I think needs to be addressed as soon as possible. But we'll see what happens as we go forward. Chris, like always, we do appreciate you being on the show. For all our listeners, please go to mavensnotebook.com. It's a great place to get information every single day about water. It's sort of my water Bible that I read every day. It's good information.
Thank you for that.
And you can subscribe to that if you want to make a donation. It's a 501c3. Is that correct?
That's correct. Tax deductible.
Yep. And I'm telling you, if you want to know anything about water, it's when I call up and want to speak to a legislator and I can't get them, I call Chris. She tells me everything I need to know. So we appreciate that. Chris, have a good holiday weekend and stay safe with your family, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, take care.
Great. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be back to the Water Zone with another guest that we have all the way from Milwaukee. So stand by, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for a place to buy your landscape and gardening items? Come visit us at Site One Landscape Supply. We offer a large and quality selection of irrigation, landscape, and outdoor living products such as Toro's water-efficient precision nozzles. Site One Landscape Supply has over 30 locations right here in Southern California, and we are the largest national wholesale distributor of landscape supplies in the United States. Site One's knowledgeable and friendly staff is equipped to help you with all your landscape, irrigation, and outdoor living projects. Whether you're redoing your backyard into a drought-tolerant garden or creating a water-efficient landscape for your client, Site One has everything you need, including the latest in water-saving technologies, drought-tolerant plants for your yard, irrigation supplies, fertilizer and weed control products, landscape accessories, hardscape products, outdoor lighting, and much, much more. Visit SiteOne.com to find a store near you or stop by today. Site One. We are stronger together.
Did you know that an irrigation system that has a leak of just 1/32 of an inch in diameter, that's the thickness of a dime, wastes 6,300 gallons of water per month or 75,000 gallons per year? Well, with more solvent cement experience than anyone on the planet, Weldon formulates their products not just to meet a standard, but to exceed it. Weldon products are designed to provide even greater safety margins, often able to make up for common mistakes or less than ideal installation conditions, reducing the chance for leaks and costly callbacks. Weldon's invention of solvent cement over 60 years ago revolutionized the piping industry. From day one, Weldon has led the industry with their broad range of high-performing solvent cements, primers, and cleaners, bringing unique solutions to professional contractors and homeowners. Along the way, Weldon has earned the loyalty of millions of professional contractors who trust their products and depend on their outstanding customer service, live technical hotline, troubleshooting services, and free training. And because they care about the environment, Weldon was the first manufacturer to develop and offer a complete line of low VOC cements. Their hottest formulation is Weldon 750 Hot Weld, a one-step, fast-setting blue PVC solvent cement specifically formulated for superior, long-term, trouble-free performance. So whether you're a professional contractor or just a backyard do-it-yourselfer, choose Weldon, the trusted global leader in solvent cements for leak-free plastic piping systems. To learn more about their complete line of products or technical training, visit the web at www.weldon.com or call their technical service hotline at 877-477-8327.
Oh, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone on KCAA 1050 AM. And, aside from all the stations we got going, we also got iHeartRadio, and we have podcasts, and we broadcast in video. So anybody out there, you can actually see Chris now. And Chris is going to wave to the audience, whoever's watching. How you doing? See, you came out really good. And you told me you had a face for radio. Chris only does this for the beer, right?
I'm only here for the beer.
Good. I don't have to put an expense in there.
That's right.
Expense request. Anyway, our next gentleman is somebody named Dean Amhouse, and he serves as the first president and CEO of the Water Council, and that's headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Water Council was formed in 2009 to drive economic technology and talent development to support the global water industry. They have over 190 members, 200 water technology companies in the Wisconsin Water Technology Cluster. The organization convenes global water leaders and supports businesses, utilities, government agencies, educational programs, and nonprofits with valuable services, programming, and network opportunities. And they have opened in September 2013, so it's going a couple years, the Global Water Center. It's a one-of-a-kind water technology research and business accelerator, and it's in a 7-story refurbished silver lead warehouse, which is a good thing. And so we'd like to welcome Dean for joining us. Dean, how are you doing today?
Very good. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the invitation to join you today.
Yeah, I was talking to, obviously, I've been talking to Megan Jensen at your organization, and she gave me some information about you and the organization. I was very much intrigued. Chris, I'm going to skip here for a couple things, but we'll get to it in a minute with Chris. But what is, if you can explain to our water audience, what is the Water Council in Milwaukee, and how does this group come to fruition? How did it start? What is its mission?
Well, it's sort of, as you were just talking with Chris, it's all about the beer, frankly.
See, he thought about that.
I like this guy already.
He thought about that when I was talking to him about, which we'll talk about later, which was the brew kind of things. And he thought, he says, I'm in.
Yes, when we first discussed that, I was on board right away.
You're on the next plane to Milwaukee. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and in many ways, I jokingly say it's about the beer, but it truly is. It's about the beer in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. And because, a lot of times you think about what we've got, and you describe, our water technology cluster. We've got, 200 companies, and these are companies that are solution providers around water quantity and water quality. Brand names you may be familiar with, Kohler Company,
mm-hmm.
Smith, Zurn, Rexnord, Badger Meter, a whole slew of them. But, in many respects, it really goes back to what happened 160 years ago. And it was the Germans who came to settle in Milwaukee. And in fact, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the name Milwaukee is actually a Native American name, meaning gathering place by the water. And so you had the Native Americans came, settled there.
Well, that's why you have the Braves.
We did have the Braves. They sort of skipped town a little bit.
Yeah.
But now we got the Brewers.
Yes.
Back to the beer again.
Yeah.
But, they settled there, and, after the Native Americans came the Germans, and what they did is they came and started brewing beer, and lots and lots of beer. But those breweries, just like the tanneries and the manufacturers, who were very large water users, needed suppliers that provided them the pumps and the valves and the meters and the pipes and the fixtures to process water.
Mm-hmm.
And that, naturally occurred over decades and decades. And, what we did in Milwaukee, and this is not unique, it was happening across the United States and still happening, unfortunately, globally. We were polluting our rivers and our lakes for a long period of time. And then when that Clean Water Act came into play, everything had to change. So those water users had to change their process, the suppliers had to change, and new businesses started up and to address those water issues. And it was really about 10 years ago when we were going through an economic development effort of getting our 7 counties to work in a more collaborative way that we were really looking at what were the primary industries within the greater Milwaukee region. And it was then that we discovered that we had this real strength around water technology. And the reason why I say it's a discovery is when you start looking at, the whole range of businesses, they're classified in different kinds of codes. So, like a biotech company's got a code, or, somebody who's in forestry, there's another code. But interesting enough, there is no business code for water technology. So frankly, if there's no code, then there isn't anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we were able to dive, and there's a lot of puns with the job as well, but we were able to dive in deeper, and we found, at the heart of this were all these companies that were involved in water. And not only did we find the companies, but then we also discovered that we had some really academic programs that were very strong and unique. One of them had started out quite naturally right at the same time as the Clean Water Act, and it became the largest freshwater research facility on the Great Lakes. Nobody knew about it because it was literally sitting down in an old tile factory in the southern part of town. Nobody went to. It was very difficult to get to. And we discovered that we had this key asset, and it was part of one of our major universities in Milwaukee. So, once we had that discovery of the academic programs, the industries, very strong utilities who had gone through some challenging times of their own, as you might recall, 20-plus years ago, we had a cryptosporidium outbreak. Our drinking water utility had to change their practices. Our wastewater treatment facilities, when it rains here, we would get the torrential rains, and we'd have to, dump waste into Lake Michigan 60 to 70 times a year. That's now down to maybe once a year. And so we've really become, frankly, experts in managing water.
Mm. Wow.
I know that there's a lot of great work that's out there for you to do, and I know that you don't do it alone. I know there's a lot of alliances and partnerships that you have, but from the beginning, can you kind of give our listeners a little roundhouse summary of what the Global Water Center is and what it means? It's what Rob alluded to in his little introduction. So if you could spend just a couple of minutes on that for us.
Sure,
Dean?
absolutely. So one of the things that when we discovered, that we had this industry, and we said, well, as an economic development organization, we want to grow the businesses that are already in the region, and we want to start up new businesses that are focused around water, and we also want to attract other water businesses. But frankly, if we're going to do that, and if you were to come to Milwaukee 6 years ago, I could travel you around and I could show you all of the different research labs and all the facilities. And I can say it's all out there. But what we really needed to do was to create a facility that could be that center of activity that people could come to and really to be able to work together and cooperate. And so it was literally about 7 years ago when we came up with this idea of restoring an old warehouse and constructing what is now the Global Water Center. And it is intended and is working as a true water technology accelerator building. So you may be familiar that there's a lot of small business accelerators that are across the entire world. Mm-hmm. You've got them in certainly a lot of parts of your area, the country.
Right.
But, what's unique is there's nobody that's focusing just strictly on water. And what we also wanted to do was not just have it about small businesses. We wanted to bring in universities, their researchers, their students, their labs. We wanted to bring in large corporations as well, and to really put them in this 98,000 square foot building. So that's what we've constructed. We've got about 50 businesses of all different sizes in the building. We've got 2 of the 7 floors are universities where they've got researchers in their labs working, and they can work with businesses. And what we're doing is actually attracting a lot of businesses from across the world who come to Milwaukee to work together. One of our entrepreneurs, frankly, called it, it's like Disney World for water geeks.
Well, geographically, you are right next to one of the world's largest freshwater lakes.
Absolutely. Well, yep. look at the academic members you got on your council. You've got people from Concordia, Marquette University, St. Thomas More, University of Wisconsin, various locations. I mean, you've attracted top-notch, educational partners.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things that we see 3 things have been our foundation as a mission from the beginning, and they still stand true. It's about economic development, really helping to create new businesses, help to support the ones that we have. It's about talent development. All of us are not getting any younger at all. We hear a lot of, these water technology businesses that are looking for new talent. Mm-hmm. And, those talent, the young talent, they're looking for internships. They're looking for jobs, and that's what we can offer them. And then the third piece is technology development, new innovation, new solutions. And frankly, we see all 3 of those interconnected, and they have to work together. And when you come into the Global Water Center, it really is it's beautiful space, this restored warehouse. But you can literally go from one office to another office, between the elevators, and you can talk to people who are all working in water in different areas. And what you find is this unique ecosystem of collaboration that I've not seen anyplace else.
That's great. Like self-forming teams, that sort of a thing that get together?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually had competitors, and we do have competitors in the building that, on certain things, they will work together and cooperate. I do have to tell you an interesting story about the building and the whole sense of that competition. So when we were moving into the building, Sloan, manufacturer, does all types of things in the bathroom. They're one of our board members, and they said, well, we'll donate all of the fixtures for the bathrooms in the building. We said, that's fantastic. That's great. And then a few months later, we had Zurn, who said, well, they're going to move in. And they said, well, we can't go to the men's room and the women's room and look at our competitors' fixtures. Can you take that out and put our stuff in? We said, sure. And they kept on growing, and now they're on the second floor, the third floor, and sixth floor. So if you want to come to the building, you can actually test all different kinds of products in our restroom.
That is so interesting. Sloan is floor 3, and Zurn is the 4th floor, and Kohler is floor 5.
But that's prevalent. We're doing a project here with a company called Ewing Irrigation, where help retrofitting and adding some new things to the California School of the Deaf, and we're putting in irrigation equipment. And so we had meetings the last month or two, and we're getting down. We started doing the installation and stuff. There's an independent contractor who's going to put the things in, because we're just the manufacturer of the Toro product. And so we're sitting there, and he says, "Yeah, I'm going to put in. I can mention the name of their competitor. I'm going to put Netafim drip irrigation in." And I'm looking at it, and I go, "No, you're putting Toro in." He says, "Well, I like Netafim." I said, "I know, but we're donating it, and it's our project, so we're putting our stuff in, And again, the competition is good, and I think competition is very good for any industry, because it drives each respective company, to try to do one up on the next. But it pushes them to learn and create new technology. So I think that's a good thing, and it happens everywhere. In that, can you talk a little about, because Chris is getting thirsty about that brew program? We had one of your winners on a couple of weeks back. But how did that start? And so when they win this thing, do they get money? Do they and how does that come from private industry or what?
Well, we've got a couple of different things. So when we moved into the Global Water Center 5 years ago, the state of Wisconsin, through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, said, here you've got this gorgeous building. We'll take some space in the building. We'll give it to you, but we want you to really work on helping entrepreneurs, small businesses. And they said, not only have this space where they can work in there, but why don't you start up this program where you do business training with them, and you help support them, and show them how to develop a business plan and how to make a pitch to an investor.
Right.
And that was really the genesis of this program, which we call the BREW, which stands for Business Research Entrepreneurship in Wisconsin. And so we've gone through now 5 years of running this program. We take 6 companies per year. It's a competition to get into the BREW. We're looking at, certainly the uniqueness of their product and innovation, but also, what's the business model and what's the people behind the businesses? Can they be able to move this forward? Not only do we give them space in the Global Water Center and not only do the training, but we also invest $50,000 in each of those companies and to be able to help them grow and develop. And we take a small little equity in that company. It's really nothing that we're going to make any money on, but we're taking a little bit of a stake in that company, and we have a commitment to make them succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So they go through this training for 6 months, and then they graduate, and they can stay in the building and continue to grow and develop. We take them to trade shows and conferences. We try to introduce them to investors to be able to help them to become successful as well.
Right. I think that's great, because most companies who develop technology, they're techie people. They have degrees, they're engineers or scientists, but they don't know how to run a business. And the financial stuff, and a lot of people who come up with great ideas and start off and go out and get some money, the next thing they know, when they don't meet the program, the deadlines and the things, the next thing, the investors own the company, and they're the ones running the show. And then the guys who designed it say, well, gee, what happened? it was our idea. Well, yeah, it was your idea, but you didn't run the business right, and that's what happens.
Exactly. And we've had those, and that's something that we know is going to be the case, and we've told some of those companies, listen, you need help. You need to be able to have somebody who can take this company and really run it for you.
Right.
And we've seen where that has happened, and it's hard for that founder, that inventor, to give up a little bit of his or her company. But as we make the argument is, you want 100% of nothing, or 60% of something that's really growing and developing.
Good point.
And Microbe Detectives, which is DNA research around water, is a great example of that. They were one of our first companies going through the brew. They now have a person who has been an entrepreneur himself, helping to run that company. And now it's taking off in a strong way. It's something that we recognize as economic development groups is we really need to have talent, not only doing the engineering and the research and the science, but we really need to have the talent who are going to help run these businesses as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And people are hard to give up. I won't go into total background, but years ago when I used to be in the music business, way long ago when I was really young, you get a record contract, but you have to have a business manager. You have to have an agent. You have to have a publishing. You start going through this, and you have to have a road crew. By the time you get done, you're going to make X amount of dollars a night. But then that starts getting divided, and everybody gets a piece of the pie. And and especially in business, when somebody comes up with a great idea, and they go, "Well, I don't really want to give 5% or 10% away of my business," but you don't go anywhere unless you do that.
Right.
Unless you got deep pockets yourself and you can hire whatever you want right off the bat, it's really tough for people to get into the world. Even we get people coming to us almost. I'm exaggerating every day, but quite often, hey, we got new technology. Is Toro interested in buying us? It happens everywhere, even at trade shows. You get these little entrepreneurs who come by and they have two people in their little company, and hey, we got this thing. It's better than what you got, and give me $10 million and you can have it. It happens every day, but they don't know how to run a business, and that's the bad part about it.
Right. Yeah, Dean, let me ask maybe a simple question, but other than the economic incentive that you mentioned, obviously you want to attract water-focused startups into the Brew program, but what other kind of initiatives that have you used to help these startups and these small businesses in the water sector become involved with the Water Council?
It's a good question, and I think it's something we can't just bring them here or start up these new companies. One of the things that they feed off of is that collaboration, that ecosystem. That's one thing, and to be able to work amongst themselves with other larger corporations, but then to be able to have access to those universities and those labs. And we've got a lot of these entrepreneurs who walk in and they look at these 2 floors of labs, and they say, I would never have this opportunity, wherever I am, to be able to get this access to this equipment. But the other thing that we started maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and we got some support from Wells Fargo on this, was piloting the technology. Because, it's great, to be able to, come up with a solution that works off your computer or in the lab, but you've got to do a real test in the real world. And so we are now piloting those technologies in our utilities, our drinking, our wastewater, but also in the industrial standpoint, working with businesses, because we see that is going to be certainly a very much of a growing market, not only in the United States but globally, is that you've got a lot of industries who can't wait around for a utility to figure out what they want to do to deliver that water, and they're going to take it on themselves. So we want to be able to get our brew folks to be able to pilot these, their technologies with the companies as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages to having, what you're describing as really a central clearinghouse for technology companies to come and invest their time, energy, effort, and their money and resources as well, just to be competitive, because the velocity of change in all industries, but the water industry, as we're involved in, is just tremendous these days, and every year it just gets faster and faster, doesn't it?
Yeah. And we're actually teaming up with the Israel Innovation Authority to even expand that further. So even as of end of March 31st, we've got an RFP, a request for proposals from Israeli companies to pilot new technologies in Milwaukee. The authority is putting up $150,000. Our utility, wastewater, is putting up another $150,000. Bring these companies here to, again, test and pilot those technologies, but also to, again, work with our small businesses as well.
Well, you also expanded your facilities out in Europe, I understand.
Yes. So we just opened, starting the first part of the year, we opened the office in Ireland, and we've got a person working half-time because what we saw was certainly there is a huge industry in Europe, and we really came to the determination that to be able to work with, in the Netherlands or Germany or France or wherever it may be, we really needed to have somebody over there, just time zone-wise, being able to have access. And so we've already seen the benefits just in a matter of a few months, because having somebody over there that the German Water Partnership can work with directly has been tremendous.
Wow! You also, as Chris said earlier, or alluded to, and you had stated, the amount of people, technology, management, finance. I think you even brought in the Cambria Capital is in your
right.
facility in the beginning of the month. So it's kind of, if you got an idea and you're pretty techie and you need some help in understanding business and you got to find people for money, it's like going to one place and you have it all.
Disney World.
Yeah.
You got it all.
That's incredible.
And it's something that we're always looking for, new talent and new solutions to be able to help them grow their businesses as well.
Wow. Maybe I was going to float this to Chris and to you. Maybe over the next couple of months, maybe we can have some people from who's actually working there with your organization come on and talk a little about what they're doing if they want to, and give some promotion to that, and let our listeners, because it goes all across the country. Actually, we were surprised. We had some people from Europe that came to visit our company, and our boss, Mr. Phil Burkhardt, who's our Vice President General Manager, was so stoked that the guy over in I think it was Finland or wherever he was from, he says, "Yeah, I listened to your podcast." So we were blown away, and but we'd love to talk to some people and see what's out there. It's pretty exciting for all of us. So
and the thing is there's such a wide range of things. Somebody asks us, what do you focus on? It's hard to say, but it's water. The only thing that we don't get involved with, because we've got this big pond called Lake Michigan, we don't get a lot into desalination at all. But we actually have companies that are interested in that, providing parts to that desalination system. But I'm sure they would enjoy getting on the radio with you.
Well, great. Well, we're up against time here because NBC News has to take us to the news. Anyway, Dean, thank you very much. I will call you if I can, maybe next week or whatever, and talk about some future things. We'd really like to get more involved understanding what you do, and maybe we can come visit Laverne and Shirley while we're there.
Sounds great. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. And remember, everybody, thanks for joining us on the Water Zone. Chris and I appreciate you listening to us, and also the other Chris. Got two Chris's now. And remember, the most important thing to do this week is to see if he's up to the board. Do you know it? Think blue.
Oh, sorry. Think blue, yes. I was looking at the time.
He's in training. Good night, everybody. Have a great Easter and Passover and whatever holidays you celebrate. Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.